Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm honored to be here with Brandy Williams and her show, Witchcraft and Theurgy. Greetings and welcome, Brandy. How are you?
Thank you, Hercules. Wonderful. And I'm so happy to have a new guest today. Do you want to go ahead and introduce him?
Oh, it is Michael K. Waterman, also known as Setna Khamuast, also known as Setna Khamuast. I'm probably mispronouncing that.
Setna Khamuast. It's okay.
Okay.
Pleased to meet you, Michael. This is Michael and I meeting for the very first time, and probably our first 5 minutes of conversation.
And I'm a Virgo, and late just doesn't do it for me. It freaked me out.
And I'll
Yes.
be here in case you guys need me. I'm really looking forward to this.
We always need you. Come on, Hercules.
Yes, you're indispensable, Hercules.
Thank you.
Oh,
I'm so
I'm
happy,
getting
Michael.
seasick.
There you are. You're floating on the above the
On
earth.
the moon. I don't know where. I guess I'm on the moon. Yeah.
Are you on the moon? Okay. Well, thank you for making time for this meeting. I'm so happy to get a chance to connect with you. And
It's about time. I've been trying to do that for a long. I've heard about you for years.
Uh-oh. It's all true. The rumors are true.
Oh, I hope so. What they said was very nice.
Thank you. Well, I know almost nothing about your work. Can you tell me a little bit about, I just heard you say you were a high priest of Bast. Yes. Can you tell me a little bit about what you do?
I am the high priest and founder of the Neteru temples. We are dedicated to all the Neteru, which is the pantheon of Egypt.
Mhm.
I have been initiated many, many times for different gods and goddesses. In 1977, I was initiated by Olivia Robertson, and yes, at the temple in Ireland, at the Fellowship of Isis. She made me a high priest of Isis and Osiris.
Mhm.
Before that, the coven I belonged to on Long Island was the Circle of Bast. Now, don't let the name fool you. Just like Laurie Cabot has the coven of Isis, they worship the Celtic, Druidic, Greek, and Egyptian gods and goddesses. My ancestors, I'm from an ancestral grove, which began actually just north of London and also at the Isle of Man. My last name is Waterman. My ancestors' last name is Watamanan. We worship the Maclear, Manon and Manon, Maclear.
Yes.
Those are the sea gods. So yeah, I'm a waterman that way because we brought the rain from the sky. So I'm an old witch from a very old grove. I don't want to say coven. There were 13 or 14 covens that were together that would meet on the shore between the Isle of Man and England. So I guess that's Wapping, I think they call it, or Whiting.
Huh?
So
Oh,
we've been
that's
around.
amazing.
I can trace my father's ancestors back in England since Alfred the Great. We signed the Doomsday Book, which is really very cool. I have an ancestor, his name was Wilkie. What a name. And his son was Edwin. And going forward, every first son's first son was Edwin. I'm Michael because my father was the second son and he was Robert.
Oh,
So I'm the first Michael in our family for 1,200 years.
Oh.
We kept records, so I know. My brother Thomas, Edwin, Raymond, Robert, Alfred, those names they all had, but no Michael. So here I is.
oh, that's wonderful. So
I initiate people in the ways of Kemet, the ancient Egyptian traditions. I read and write hieroglyph. My teacher said my English handwriting was so bad it might as well have been hieroglyph. And my fifth grade teacher got me so pissed off that I did all my math homework in hieroglyph. And she looked it all up and it was accurate.
she must have liked you.
Oh, she was so mad at me. Your handwriting is like hieroglyphs. I said, well, because it is hieroglyph. It's their math, you know, it was their language is beautiful, mostly pictogram. Yeah. But the gods and then there's I'll call it the regular alphabet, which is really something that Champollion, the man who discovered the Rosetta Stone and deciphered it, A lot of those things are inaccurate.
Right.
We found out. Now look, in French, je means I, right? The ancient Egyptian word for beauty is nefer, N-E-F-E-R. Well, if you put je, nefer, you got Jennifer. That means I'm beautiful. The goddess Nuit, or Nuit, is the night sky, which is beautiful. But Nuit, the same spelling, is French for night. Now, do you think he messed up a little bit there? I do. There's an inaccuracy there. There's also the goddess Mut, who, if you spell it wrong, looks like mutt. And she's basically in Hercules' world, she'd be Juno, because she's the wife of Ra-Amun or Ra-Heru. I thought my chief father deity is Ra, but if you know the story of Ra and Isis tricked Ra into giving him his sacred name. So he planted within her the seed. So when she gave birth to Horus, yes, it was Osiris' child, but he looked like Horus. He looked like Ra. He had a falcon head. Osiris, as you know, is green. Depending on what mood he's in. He also can have a falcon head when he's the god Sekar, which is the moon. You know, all these traditions have a lady in the moon or the man in the moon, and Egypt has a man sometimes. Sometimes you have also Nephthys, who's the goddess of time, and she's also, Neith, she's mysteries. Nephthys is mystery. Neith is the goddess of time, but she's also supposedly on the dark side of the moon. We've never seen her. She has long black hair and a silver streak. And they say when she whips her head around, you'd actually see like a crater because where she's hiding, which is kind of incredible.
Yes. So Michael, when we do this show, I have two questions. And you had started out talking about your witchcraft heritage. The two questions are, what is witchcraft and what is theurgy to you? So I want to go back to the witchcraft part.
Oh my God, yes.
And ask you, what is witchcraft to you? And then talk to me about your witchcraft heritage.
Well, beside being an Egyptian, as a witch, I believe that we have abilities and strengths. It is about growing the knowledge you have so that you can take what you have and the worship of the gods and goddesses and the taking care of the stewardship of the earth, that we are here to help out. For centuries, we were the people that advised kings and queens and what have you. And then we stupidly said, you know what? They're doing good on their own. And look what happened. Okay, we gotta be back and being advisors and things. And as you know, in the burning times, not one of us was ever burned at the stake. Not one. A lot of poor old ladies who had a lot of property, or they were midwives, or they were herb women, or they had, or they just were really old and lived in a cave and they were green. So because of the moss on their skin. That's not about witchcraft. Witchcraft to me is the ability, the strength that we have, the use of our God and goddess given talents to help others and to make equilibrium happen in the world.
I totally believe and agree with you on that. Talk to me about your ancestors. So you're American, but you trace your ancestry back to England.
Well, I'm a mutt. I'm a typical New Yorker. My father's father and my mother's father are from England. I hail from the Waterman and Sloane families in England. My grandmother was Bartha. She's from Austria, which means bath, Bartha. My father's mother was from Gdańsk in Poland. And we discovered through family Bibles and things that somewhere along the line, I have a great-great-great-grandmother in the 1850s or 60s. George IV was in power, I think, maybe it's in the 1830s. Her name was Fatima Ptolemaeus, and she was a Greco-Egyptian. And we also discovered doing genealogy that in her family, there was also Arab and sub-Saharan Sudanese. So I'm a real mixed bag. And I wouldn't have it any other way. It's more fun this way. So, but my heritage in England goes back for a very long time. I'm learning about the Polish, the Slavonic gods and goddesses. I knew nothing about them. And I felt that's part of my heritage. And I wanted to know. I know the English gods and goddesses, and I know you do. The English and Celtic and Druidic. And that's my, my great ancestors are Druids. Sometimes I'm a little proud of that, but the human sacrifice thing, not so much. But I am proud of that. We also know that somewhere along the line, because I have ancestors also in York, that we've got Viking in there somewhere too. So, but glad. What else can I tell you that you want to hear, that you want to, and I can give to you?
You were talking about the covens that met, and a group of like 13 covens, and that stuff always really fascinates me when we talk about witchcraft history.
Well, I grew up in Uniondale, which is in Long Island. I am now in glamorous, beautiful Newark, New Jersey. Don't laugh, you're supposed to. Anyway, well, it's a pretty weird place, but I live in the Ironbound, which sounds kind of S&M, I think. But it's a, didn't he warn you about me? No. We grew up we had every other block had a coven. My aunt Winifred was my grandfather's sister, was the high priestess. My grandfather for a while was high priest. Nobody knew that. He was a very unusual man. He had 2 pots on the stove. They had 5 or 6 burners. He told my grandmother, who was Polish, "You don't touch those pots." One of them was for his iced tea. He was obsessed with iced tea like I am with iced coffee. But the other pot was a black and white enamel pot. And in it, he had herbs or whatever. We didn't know, he didn't say. But when something needed to be done in the family, he'd go over to the kitchen and he'd drop something into the pot and things happened. My parents, when I turned 3, wanted to move out of Brooklyn. And my mother and father were looking for a house, and Grandpa said, "I got this." Boom. He and my aunt, we found a house in Uniondale for, I think it was $16,000. And they bought it, boom, instantly. And this is in 1961. My parents sold the house for 10 times that when they moved. And in 1980, they moved. But so I grew up in a coven, in a grove of covens. It was kind of an interesting thing. We met in the Methodist church downstairs. The reverend was a witch. And he said, love, on the outside, be whatever people think we are. On the inside, be yourself. That was in the 60s and 70s. And witchcraft was not thought well of. They thought of us as Margaret Hamilton or Endora, or something, or in my case, Uncle Arthur. It wasn't looked at well. And it wasn't until I got involved with Magical Child in the city when I was 14 and I started working with people like Herman Slater and the high priestess Rhiannon, who is Valerie Risakella, and the great Lady Rhea, who is a dear, dear friend, that I suddenly saw the world as, it's hard being a witch that you're hiding. So we, that was the whole thing. And the occult, it wasn't even called paganism or something, it was the occult, meant that things were hidden. Well, when I became the high priest in 1976, I was a young student high priest. I was only 18. They said to me, "Now you will keep all the grimoire and the hidden things hidden." Well, I felt like the older people were dying out in the coven. They were quite old, 80s and 70s. And, a lot of them, because it was in the time of the 50s that they joined together, were heavy smokers and they were all dying of cancer. So I said, I've got to do something. So to get new blood into things, I put ads up in Magical Child and in other witch places and in Earth News. And in the process, I met people like Raymond Buckland and Margot Adler, Eddie Brzezinski, all these amazing people. So I became kind of a Herodotus of the witch world. I wanted to know everything about everybody. I met Selena Fox, Olivia Robertson, hundreds of magical people. So and thanks to Herman was a conduit to everything. I give him credit for everything. But I did that on Long Island, and I was famous for my tarot cards. I've been a reader since I was 12 years old. I own my own company now, which is Phone a Wizard, because I'm the wizard. And I have a 97% accuracy rate. And I take that as the gift from the gods. I do. I think that the knowledge of that came to me through Tehute Thoth, who is wisdom and knowledge. And I think he gives me that. And also Osiris, because I work with the dead as well. And I know that he, he is the Lord of the underworld to me, and Anubis. But so I grew up as a witch. I knew what it was like to grow up with people around me that practice magic, which is unusual, I think. People discover the occult or discover magic later in their lives. But my grandmother was doing things with herbs, and my grandfather with his pot, and my Uncle Lloyd doing all kinds of things. He was an interesting man. If he was pissed off, the lights just went out. And one time it was the whole block, and it wasn't a blackout because other blocks had lights on them. He was in a bad mood. Boom, it happened. And when he's fine, everything came back on all of a sudden, mysteriously. But he was an amazing being. And I had other relatives like that were very magical and very powerful. My Uncle Lloyd taught me about Egyptian gods and goddesses. I saw in 1963, Hercules is going to be bored. I saw a painting, poster of Liz Taylor as Cleopatra. My mother was beautiful, but she didn't look like that. And I wanted to know who that was. And the name Cleopatra screamed into my head. I knew that name. I don't know why I knew it, but I knew it. The same as I wear the Eye of Horus, Uchat, always. I knew what this was before I ever heard what it was. I knew I could draw it, and I knew its name. So I'm very involved with past lives. And when I work with my teacher, when I'm teaching people things, I look at them and I can tell by their zodiac sign and by their eyes where they were. And I teach people in my groups to do that, and that's part of what we are different than others, because we use the knowledge of the ancient peoples. I have a phone. We're right now on my phone, and I was having techno problems. That was the gods in here. I think it's my kitchen elves doing mischief. That's what that was. I'm very in touch with the elementals. I know you are also. When I was in Huntington doing this ritual, all of a sudden we walked on a path, and there was about, I guess, a 3-foot circle of mushrooms that popped up out of nowhere. That's a fairy ring. And I knew that they were pleased with what we did. So I hope, you're having great experiences like this too. And I'm talking too much.
No, this is the point. The point is we set the meeting, and then we ask you questions, and then you talk. And when you run down, we ask you another question. That's how the interview works.
I'm a very verbal Virgo, so I can talk. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, I'm so, one of the things I've really loved about doing the show is asking people what is witchcraft, because I grew up, I read Lady Sheba's Book of Shadows. I bought it new.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah.
71. I have her copy from 71. And then I was initiated as a Georgian in 1977. And I'm very proud to be Georgian, because it's a line that is, it's eclectic, and it's also very progressive. So I just love being it. But I had, so I grew up in the 70s and 80s and had a whole career as helping people to witchcraft. I was president of Covenant of the Goddess. And what is fascinating to me is how—
Well, I know Covenant of the Goddess very well. And there's a very large group out on Long Island. I know that. They're wonderful. They're wonderful people. I was very good friends also with Nancy Venus, who you'd know very well, and Jackie Beltane, and all those people from all those, and April, who's now April Smith, who was April Gramassi at the time. She was my first high priest outside of my coven, my first high priestess. It's a weird thing that we never met before. We should have.
Well, we have met now, and it's Hercules. Hercules, he identifies with the god Hercules, but I identify him also as a child of Hermes, because Hermes brings people together, and Hermes knows everybody, and Hercules knows everybody.
Well, I'm definitely, an Isian and Osirian. My mother goddess is on my finger, which is Isis.
So what's interesting to me about doing this show is that I've had like this experience, and over the last 20 years, what people think of as witchcraft has changed so substantially. It doesn't really resemble the way we did it when I was coming into the craft. So that's why I was very interested, because you have a past that goes back farther than mine for sure. And it sounds like your family and your group of covens goes back farther than that too. So that's a really important history to capture.
My covens, the Circle of Fast and the others that were part of us, There was a Daughters of the Crone. There was Brothers of Kanunos. These people are all gone now, but they all got together for the rituals. And there could be as many as 40 to 50 people in that, either in Greenfield Cemetery, which was fun, or we were, Nassau Road and Uniondale Avenue. Or we were on Uniondale Avenue at the Methodist Church, or we were actually in the woods. Hercules would love this. On Southern State Parkway, on the Roosevelt side of the strip, there's a big forest, and there's a huge clearing surrounded by trees, and it's called Hecate's Woods. And we would meet. There was a tree stump, a gigantic tree stump someone had brought down, and that was our altar. So we put out the earth, air, water, and fire symbols. We had our god and goddess, we had our candles, we had everything, our directions, everyone. And if you passed, you'd flip out. We were all in robes. We all wore red or brown, or depending on what our position in the ritual was. We wore color robes coordinate with the energy, and we would all have a speaking part in the ceremony. And when cakes and ale came, it was brought to everyone, and we all closed the circle together, and we opened the circle together. It was a beautiful way to grow up. It really, and I didn't know other people didn't grow up like that.
So where did it come from? I mean, were you off of Gardner, or was it, more like family tradition? Gardner
is, that's 20th century, my dear. My family came to Hampstead, Long Island in 1663. Hampstead was settled in 1648, and there, 12 or 13 years ago, a bunch of witches showed up. Did anybody know they were witches? No. Some of my family people, were, they had an apothecary shop, figures, right? Or they were house cleaners, or they were laborers. They were very common people. Nobody was noble. Some of my family members were indentured servants. They had come with the Dutch because they hadn't paid their bills. I get that gene myself, I think, but hadn't paid their bills, and they were clapped into irons. They were basically slaves, but they all got together somewhere along the line, and they built up covens. A lot of people, if you see a Sloane or a Barth or a Waterman, a lot of them, their ancestors will be witches. You'll have a Green, which would have been Green Man in real way. So a lot of those people were around my family. My aunt knew when we were moving from Brooklyn to Uniondale that we needed a place, and my grandfather zapped it up, as I say. I don't want to do it that way, but Grandpa summoned the gods and did his thing, and so did Aunt Winnie. And we were living right next door, around the block from her. So she knew, and she'd check on me. She said I had the abilities already. I had the energies. There was an incident when I was about 4. My mother came up to check on me in my room, and my stuffed animals were coming out of the box onto the bed. And my mother looked at me and everything fell. I had telekinesis. I didn't know what it was. I was 4 years old. I just knew I wanted my toys. And when I saw things like that on Bewitched, I laughed. I was like, yeah, that's for real. You don't know that. So my mother threw all those stuffed animals out. She was afraid they were possessed. My mother's side of the family was Austrian, and they were Lutheran, and they did not want to know about magic. My mother did not want to hear these things. Actually, my father didn't either. It was my aunts and uncles and my grandpa. My father's mother was Polish Catholic, and she didn't know anything. We didn't tell her. She would have had a coronary. It didn't matter that I had a pentacle ring on, or I'm wearing a pentacle. She didn't know what that was. She said, are you going to be Jewish? And I said, no, this is Solomon. This is an ancient symbol for earth, air, water, fire, spirit, and love. She said, that's not Jewish? And I said, no, Grandma, no, it's from England. She says, figures, your grandfather's side. And she passed it off, and she went back in the kitchen. She was a very, very, I didn't get her gene. She didn't talk much. Not me, okay? So that's where my beginning was. We started in 1663 here, but we were practicing magic in England before there was an England. We were Druid, we were Celtic, we were on the Isle of Man, we were in London, we were in York, and we were in which I think is Whiting, which is where the White Cliffs are, near Dover. And that was where my ancestors, and they were all pagan. They might have gone to church because they had to. But believe me, when it was Lughnasadh or it was Beltane or whatever, they practiced their magic and they followed the moon. And, you know, like Tuesday, which is amazing. You know that the full moon is on Lughnasadh this year, Lughnasadh.
I did not know that.
Tuesday, oh yes. And that's why I'm doing my ritual, not the one for the Long Island Alpine Circle. They don't understand, a lot of neo-pagans don't understand that there's a reason our ancestors used the astrological symbols and things in the time, that there's a vibration, a planetary vibration that happens when you do it right. You know, it's not like Saturday afternoon, you're going to change your golf date. It's not. The energies, there's a reason we do it when we do it. The season has moved, the energy, you can feel it moving in the air. You know, and I'm a very old witch, literally old witch. And I feel these things very strongly. And I teach my people, this is why these things are done as they are, and the tools we use. And I don't have it on the tape. Yes, I do. I've had this bell forever. My late husband was fooling around with it one day, and I don't know if you can see it, but there's a heart. You can't. There's a heart on the bell. The wax fell in the shape of a heart. So I always said that was Joe's bell. And it works very well, and I use it to summon energies. I have many other tools that I work with. And it's important. I tell people either find them, don't have people give them to you, find them, or buy them, but have them blessed yourself. But I find I call it my blasting rod or my wand. I was a part of a crabapple tree, and I asked the tree, as a druid, I asked the tree if I could have that limb. And I did, and I've had it since I was 13 years old. So that, you know, that wand is 53 years old, 54. I'm older than I say I am. But I've been working.
I think we're of an age. You'd be surprised. You know, it's interesting, and I wonder if people are doing that. As you were talking, we're so intellectual about witchcraft, and the people who are coming to witchcraft now are really coming, the young folk are really coming from this sense of connection with the earth, of working with the water and working with trees, and it's really coming from more of that need to touch down. And I love that. And I was kind of wondering if people, you know, are teaching that kind of thing, like go to the tree. When I was a teenage witch, before I even got any of the books, I would go up to trees and I trade my hair for things that I asked from the natural world, right? And it seems that seems to me to be like the core of what witchcraft is.
It is. It's exactly so. You know, when I gather herbs and things, I'll go into certain fields I know about, again, on Long Island, because it's where I grew up. And I'll gather herbs and thorns and acorns and things, because I know those forests know me. We have a relationship. When I go out I have a park by me called Liberty Park. There's a gigantic oak tree there, and he knows I'm there. The leaves will move and there's no wind, and that tree knows I'm there, and I'm very in touch with that. I take my name very seriously. I'm very connected. I'm a Virgo, but my midheaven, my rising sign is Scorpio. So I'm very connected to the ocean and to water and river. This is a very weird place for me, because Newark is kind of in the middle of things. 4 blocks up is the Passaic River, thank goddess, literally. I have water near me because I have to. It's in my name, but it's in my soul. I know that my ancient ancestors come from the water people, come from water. So it's part of me. And that's when you teach people about magic, they have to learn which part of them, if they're fire, if they're earth, if they're water, if they're air. Those things must be taught. They don't know these things anymore. They're on, you can Google it, I guess. But I'd rather tell somebody. I'm very old school that way, as you can see, very much so. I want to be able to touch people. And, I mean, this is wonderful, but I don't think having rituals on Zoom, and I do it sometimes, during COVID, we had to, it kind of loses something a little bit. but you know, it's a necessary, but there's vibration because this is an electric device. So you're having the vibrations coming back to you. We're connecting, you and I and Hercules right now. I can feel very good joy energy from you. You're a very dear, sweet lady. And I'm so happy to finally get to know you. I'm giving you a psychic hug, so you'll feel that.
I give you a psychic hug too. I was thinking that you would love where I live, because I live I live in Bremerton, Washington, in the Pacific Northwest. Everywhere we go, there's water. I spent
It's so
much
beautiful.
time. One of the things I love about the pandemic is it got us all to go outdoors. So we, I have a group, Sisters of Seshat, and we do our initiations in the local park, in the state park. And there's trees everywhere and there's water everywhere. You've got to come out here and see it.
Are you near what they call Puget Sound?
Oh yes, yeah, we're here. It's the
I was going to work. Do you know about Acorn Press?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know if he's even alive anymore, but I was to work with them in Seattle with Joel Radcliffe was his name.
Joel Radcliffe. Oh my gosh, I don't know. Yes, I knew Joel.
And Morneum and Cresta Frauen, which are up north, and I knew them very well also. They're in Toronto, I think. Or
okay.
Montreal.
Toronto is East Coast. We're Vancouver out on this side.
Well, I know that, but Joel wanted me to come out there. And I went, and somehow or other, I needed my East Coast. I think it was Egypt. It was saying, come back. I need you. Okay. I'm too far away from my mothers and fathers. So, but I tried, and I felt Eskimo energy, which was very interesting. And I
10 minutes left. So just want to.
Oh dear.
Oh, Hercules, are you able to stay a little bit longer?
Yes, I can stay a little bit longer.
Yeah. No, we can totally do it. We got started a little later.
Okay. My fault. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's great. And thank you for watching out for me, Hercules. Sometimes I have sort of right-end deadlines because I have a disabled husband. So Michael, let's go to the second question then, because that was awesome. And we have to do this again. We totally have to do this again. But I loved your stories about witchcraft. And then the second question is, what is theurgy? How do you understand that? You've been talking about the Kemetic deities, the Netchers. So I'm hopeful that you have some things
theurgy
to share with
to
us.
me is the connection to the divine. When I was 3 or 4, I was playing with pots and pans in my mother's kitchen, and all of a sudden this guy is behind me, but he's taller than he should be. And he said, my name is Michael, and you're named for me. And I want you to know that we're pleased with you. And he put his hands on me, and they were different hands than mine. And he left. And my mother said, who are you talking to? She's down the basement in the laundry room. I said, Mommy, I'm talking to the man. She says, what man? The door in the kitchen is locked, and I'm too short to get to the lock anyway. And she goes, who are you talking to? Who was that? So I went into her closet. I put a hanger on my head and silver foil on my arms. And I said, Mommy, I'm named after an angel. She'd never told me what an angel was. I didn't know. So she said, well, don't talk to people. And she went downstairs. She was, furious with me. My brother was 3, born. I mean, he was a month old, and I was 3. And she was very angry, and she just kind of went back downstairs. Well, jump ahead. In 1972, so I am 12 years old, 11 years old. There's a woman. I come to my room, and I've been working with it's called Temple of Isis incense, and I was started to work with the coven, and they wanted me to do all these Celtic and Druidic and all those, and somehow that wasn't me. And I turned around, and there was a lady, and she was all gold. Her face was gold. She had long, long hair covered in a gold wig. She wore on her head steps like this.
Yes.
This is Isis, Aset. And she said to me, I am your mother. I have always been your mother. And I fell apart. I felt the connection. I knew she was my eternal mother. And she said, your mother is going to be with me when she departs, but I am your mother. And she and Cleopatra from that silly movie brought me to the love of Egypt, but she brought me to my Theurgy. She brought me my God and Goddess home. And that's what I believe it is. Theurgy to me is the devotion, the love, the practice of worshiping and being in touch with the higher force, being in touch with the God force. Good thing I don't have makeup on.
That's lovely. Aset is everyone's mother, right? And that's
to me, she's the goddess that has been there before any other goddess. Yeah. And you know, they talk about her being Osiris' wife, but I am convinced that she's actually the mate or the co-energy of Ra, who I believe is the All-Father. Mm-hmm. She calls herself, I am she of 10,000 names. So, I mean, she's the goddess as far as I'm concerned. And I think of Ra, and I think of Zeus and Odin, and I think of them all as the All-Father. How does that sit with you?
Yes, and I love you saying that too, because we have this tendency to put goddesses as the wives of the great man, and they're sort of back here, but it all comes from Isis, Aset, and from the sort of that force, and balancing with the male force.
I am Brandy. I am egalitarian. I believe that you cannot have a male figure or a female figure alone, that they are together. We have male and female beings, human beings, animal beings. For God's sakes, that even bacteria that are male and female, doesn't that tell you something? So they are the God force. There's a goddess and a God force, and I believe that very strongly.
And I wanted to ask you about Bast too, because you were saying that you're a priest of Bast. So talk to me about your relationship with her.
Since I was a little boy, cats always followed me around. I didn't know why, but when I was initiated originally, before I was anything else, they put on my head an oil that I make, which has catnip and different things in it. And it was here. And they told me that I would be what is called Shemsu Basta, a high priest of Bast. And I've gone 8 years now without cat, which is a terrible feeling. But I have my totem statues in the house. So she's with me, even though I don't have a physical cat for the time being. I'm working on it. I want a Maine Coon. So I know exactly she's going to come to me when she needs to come to me. I already know. So I've always been devoted to her because cats are primary magic in Egypt. Bast was the teacher for all magicians. She was taught by Tehute and her mother, Isis. Isis, in the form of the goddess Sotis, and Ra are her mom and dad. That people don't know that. And she's a solar deity, not a lunar deity. Bast, Sekhmet, Hathor, they're all solar deities. People go, wait a minute, that the sun is male. The sun doesn't have any sex. The sun is the sun. It's a planet, it's a star. So, stop that. Mother Earth in Egypt is Geb, the Father Earth. Egypt is backwards in a lot of things. Not backwards as in ignorant, backwards as in different juxtaposition. But so I learned that whenever I needed energy or something around, a cat would appear. She was sending me messengers. I have about 5 or 6 cats outside that I feed that are there because I know Bast told me that I need to help them. So I'm very animal friendly. It's important to me.
Oh, that's lovely and wonderful. And I really love that about Egypt, about Kemet. It really points to us that the way we think about gender is not universal, and this is true. You can see this in a lot of cultures. I do. I work with the Kemetic nature with groups, and then I also do tantric work. And in the Indian tradition, Hindu traditions, the female is the fire, active solar force, and the male force, Shiva, is lunar and cool, and the ground on which she dances. So I love that. I love when we get to those places.
It's different. We I believe that the God, the high God force, to me, I call that Tamu, is no sex, no male nor female. What I saw was a vision. I saw a crystal. I'm going to get rid of this background because it's killing everything. Okay, we're on the river of none. This is a very powerful crystal. I saw a vision of sunlight hitting the crystal and the light going into all different directions. To me, that was the God force, and the light was how people viewed it. So that we all see different things, but the light is from the same source. And I believe that very strongly.
Yes, I do too. I was raised Catholic. When I was 16. I pushed away, or I knew that wasn't my faith as a young girl. At 16, I looked up at the sun and said, that is a universal force that is worthy of worship and adoration. And then I was crushed to find I was not the only person who'd ever thought that. And I think that's true. I think that and the sun is this great light that is our life. I mean, it is physically true, and it's also spiritually true. And it manifests, we see deity through these forms, right? So it can be manifest as a female form or as a male form, but behind it is the great light.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
Hercules, you were peeking your head in there.
Peeking my head in where?
Right where you are now. Hello, welcome back.
No, I'm listening. I'm very interested in what you're both saying.
Well, did you have anything to add?
No, this is your story, and you should tell it.
Okay, then I'll go back. I'll go back to my regularly scheduled witch.
So talk to me about what you're doing now. You talked about teaching. When Hercules has us on his shows, he says, how do people get in touch with you, and what are you doing? How can people connect with you? So
okay, it's very easy. You can get hold of me on Facebook at Michael K. Waterman. On Facebook, there's also a page called Phone a Wizard, which is about my services. You can get me at mkwaterman@icloud.com, or you can get me on my phone, which is 516-650-3691. Am I afraid that people are going to make crank calls to a witch? I don't think so. I think that my phone fairies and elves will just shock them. You'll just get out of here. So I'm not worried about that. You can also get me at mkwaterman@icloud.com, I said, or of course through Hercules. I am teaching courses in magic, Egyptian magic. I will do basic 101, which I can't look at Celtic and Druidic. I'll give people those things. I consider myself an Egyptian encyclopedia. If someone wants to know what a hieroglyph means, if they want to know how to create oils, religious implements, magical tools, as it were, I do that. If you need an ankh, or you need a sistrum, or you need a wand, I will send them to you. And to our brethren, I'm always open for questions.
Oh, that's lovely. So is there anything else that you would like to make sure people know about you?
Just that we are going to be creating Zoom classes very soon, and FaceTime classes, which will give them, how will I say it, training to become part of my temple. And my temple has people, we're on Zoom, we're international. So I have people in Egypt, I have people in England, in Japan. There's a girl in Perth, and I also have somebody in Sydney, and in Johannesburg, and in Marrakesh, in Morocco. So we're all over the place. So I teach people how to celebrate the deity Egyptian style, my way.
So what's the name of your temple?
The Neteru.
Ah, okay.
You say Neteru, yes, Neteru. It means school of or temple of the Neteru. I am Shemsu Neteru, high priest of the Neteru. And in my name is Setna Khamuast, and it is Azar Heru Ra, is the last part of it. My name takes about, forget it, in hieroglyph, it goes back, I need extra pieces. And how about you? How do we get in touch with you?
Oh, I'm Brandy Williams, author at brandywilliamsauthor.com, on Instagram at Brandy Williams Author. On Facebook, I'm not there much as Brandy Williams Author. I actually have a Pathos blog, Star and Snake, and I'm about to actually post my every other month post is going up tomorrow.
And you make videos. Show your.
Oh, I do. Yeah, I have a YouTube channel. It's not terribly active. I want to show you this actually because this is something that it's my current apotropaic phylactery is my current protective thing. It's the Kemetic the hieroglyph for knot or cord, which I love.
Yes, that is the buckle. They call it the tet. It is the buckle or sometimes considered labia, but it is the knot of Isis.
Yes.
It protects people for eternity. It is very similar to the word Shen, which is a circle with a line through it, below it.
Yeah, and my latest book is Cord Magic, so it worked, you know.
I don't know if you can see what I have on. I have my Eye of Horus. Eye of Horus. I have my pentacle because I may be Egyptian, but I'm also a witch.
A witch, yeah.
I never let that not be known. I have on an ankh. I'm wearing a black tourmaline, which cancels out negativity, and I have a scarab. I keep, I'm going to bring it over, a very large black tourmaline in the house.
Oh.
This sends away negativity, and if it doesn't, I can hit them in the head with it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Fix that. Oh, Maga. Okay, don't worry. I'm knocking over whole altars.
Yeah, don't do that. Thank you again for making time for us. And I
want to have you back. Pleasure. I'm sorry we had a little. Or so.
I want to have you back to hear how it's going with the new classes. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Brandy. And Goddess
thank
and God
so much,
bless
Michael.
you. Anku Jat Seneb, life, health, and prosperity.
Thank you both for an awesome episode and an entertaining one. And I learned a lot by listening to you. I'm going to answer one of Brandy's questions because it was very perceptive what she said. I was born a Gemini, so Hermes brought me in here. And the theosophical form of Hercules is the throat chakra, which is communication, and also the planet Mercury, which is communication. And my name, Hercules Invictus, rose during the labor with the cattle of Geryon and the establishment of the Ara Maxima, which was the cattle market in Rome, before there was a Rome. And so Hercules was associated with commerce, with bold enterprises. He was also a herm. There have been several Hercules herms found. So that's why I got a Hermes vibe too.
That's wonderful, Hercules. Thank you so much for hosting this show. It's been fantastic.
And thanks to both of you, and thanks to our audience. This should be up if all goes well by tonight.
Wonderful. I'm very excited. Well, thank you both. It was a divine pleasure, most literally.